Coming up, we have an insightful panel discussion on designing and implementing DSM and DF programs. It will be moderated by Mr. Dhruvak Aggarwal, Program Lead CEEW. Mr. Dhruvak Aggarwal, Program Lead at CEEW, focuses on household energy efficiency, electricity, sector reforms, and digitalizing power infrastructure. He collaborates globally on machine learning for grid decarbonization and has an extensive experience in building the energy efficiency in India and Southeast Asia. He leads power sector initiatives and strategic collaborations, leveraging her expertise to advance policy and technological innovations. I request Rishma to kindly. Another panelist that we have with us is Ms. Suruchi Kulkarni, Head of Business Development in India for Bijli. She has over 18 years of power sector experience. She drives energy efficiency and clean energy initiatives and developed analytics for theft and revenue leakage detection. Previously, she has managed a transformer manufacturing business. And I invite you on the dais. Another panelist that we have with us is Dr. Akil Saraf, founder and principal at PS Collective. He drives sustainable development through data-driven approaches. He focuses on just energy transition and works across power, buildings, transportation, and urban planning. His projects include demand flexibility and AI-driven load monitoring. Next panelist that we have with us is Mr. Pramod Singh, Senior Director at AEEE. He has 18 years of experience in clean energy research and program management. He oversees AEEE's research and programs on energy efficiency, renewable energy, and climate change. Previously, he has led USAID's SAREP and SAREH programs. Now, I'd like to hand over to our moderator, Mr. Dhruvak Aggarwal, to guide us through the panel discussion.
Thank you. A lot of the context obviously has been set. Thank you, Shweta and Nagna. But I'll start probably, from the far end of the panel. More to get your response to one of the questions that Kishore asked. We've got the Electricity Act in place since 2003. We've got energy conservation in place since 2001. We've got demand-side management regulations in place since at least the early 2000s in about 30 states now. So what do you think is the bottleneck? Nandan showed that list of pilots. Out of 9, I think, 5 were in Delhi, and all of them were in Rajasthan, and Maharashtra, and UPPC had one. But yeah, I mean, you've been involved in the sector for so long. You've been involved with road research studies with DISCOMs. So what's your sense on, when it comes to energy efficiency in the DISCOM lens, when you talk about demand side management, what's the bottleneck? And then because of it, do you think that there are certain things within demand side management that the DISCOM should focus on, and some other things should be left to the state governments and the STs?
Thanks, Dhruvak. Quite a tough question. Yes, one reason why we have seen so many pilots happening in only a few states. It's because of the progressive nature of the DISCOMs, number one. Number two, and I mean, whatever I share, this is my personal observation. I don't want to be quoted just a disclaimer. I also think it's because of the convenience. There are many of those pilot programs which were supported by international development organizations and who always look which DISCOM to partner with. Maybe they are the obvious ones that come into mind because of the kind of I would say progressive approach that they have, willing to try out new things. So that's on the pilot. It's not for any other reason. I would say it's the convenience and private utilities perhaps easier to work with. You rightly said Act has a provision. We have 30 DISCOMs with DSM regulations, and in most of these states the regulations are perhaps older than 8 to 10 years. So it's not that these are recent regulations. And entities like Bureau of Energy Efficiency has also been pushing demand side management for a long time. But then the question is why, no uptake. I would say, again, it's my personal observation that for a very long period, utilities were stuck with that conventional wisdom that doing DSM will lead to a loss in sales, loss in revenue. And that is something which gradually, and with the case studies that we have seen from London, I think that is something which is getting challenged through actual data. If we have, as a India, for residential sector, electricity demand that is going to grow at 8%, and you bring any forecast and compare it with actual data, those forecasts are on the lower side. So our actual demand growth is only going to increase because of the heat stress, because of the effluence, whatever we say. So if we have an 8% demand growth and we have a loss in or whatever reduction in sales which is in decimal places, this argument doesn't hold true. So that is one thing which I think utilities, many utilities have started acknowledging that, okay, this is not a well-framed argument. The second part which Nandan mentioned, that earlier, of course, meeting peak demand was one of the main criteria. But now there are other factors also which are coming into play. We are talking about decarbonization, we are talking about how to increase the penetration of renewable in the system. So just to put this into perspective, if we are talking about 430 gigawatt of solar and wind and 500 gigawatt of overall non-fossil capacity by 2030, this means we'll have roughly 30% of renewable in our grid in terms of electricity. So if countries are already seeing challenges with respect to grid management at 10%, 50%, 15% penetration, at 30%, more and more such challenges will get exposed and it will get aggravated. So that's another thing to keep into mind. Now, how this can be done? Of course, DSM regulations, it says that utilities will do load research, they will come up with programs, regulator will approve the programs if it makes a business case. But I think that's also a situation where, based on our experience, if we go to many states, talk to them, if you go to regulators, they say, we have done our job. We have come up with regulations, now we are waiting for project proposals from utilities. You go to utility, they say, okay, we are not being forced by regulators to do that. So it's like passing on, the responsibility to each other. Now, what we feel maybe a couple of things that can be done. If you want to have a efficient system, then it should start with efficient demand. And one of the problems is right now we are not, as a utility, as a planner, we are not bringing both things in the same side of the equation. So whenever we talk about supply side planning, we take demand as given and we say, okay, these are the ways through which we can meet supply. But once you start looking at what is the cost of energy efficiency services, what is the cost to get demand response, all of that, if we convert that into equivalent currency, rupees per kWh or rupees per kilowatt terms, and then we compare it with the supply options, then I think more and more such projects will be identified and they will get a push. So basically, I'm saying as part of the multi-year tariff proposals, as part of the 5-year business plan proposal, as part of the integrated resource planning, as part of the resource adequacy planning, all of this should consider demand side management and demand response. What's the cost of those options? What is the volume or supply potential available? And then compare it with what's the supply and cost available from generation sources. unless that is going to happen, we'll be, breaking our heads talking about 2 megawatt, 10 megawatt, 4 crore, 5 crore programs. So that is one thing which we should, do more and more. And then, of course, how do we do that? The projects like Nandan shared and other pilot projects, all of that has to be very well documented. I think each and every line item with respect to cost benefit should be properly tracked. Otherwise, people will feel that, okay, this is something you have missed out, your calculation was flawed, you have assumed 10 rupees power purchase cost, whereas our power purchase cost is not 5 or 6 rupees. So yeah, it has to be contextual and it has to take into account everything. Another point which I would like to say, it's slightly controversial, but see, transformations have been mainly led by insurgents and not incumbents. So if we expect utilities to start delivering demand response, demand side management services, perhaps there will be some, resistance to that. So there is also a scope which DSM regulations cover. Bring in third-party implementers, bring in demand aggregators, try to create market for them. And of course, utility has a responsibility to see whether those, the kind of commitments they are making, indeed the performance is up to that level or not. So to that extent, keep all the checks and balances. But instead of, trying to do it yourself, get it done through professionals who can do it better, who can give a better guarantee and do it at a lower cost. So thanks.
Thanks, Pramod. So Nandan, ball back to you. Aggregators need to come in. No, but yeah, very well pointed. So some of the work that we've done at the council also, we've also seen that the regulators need to sort of pick up the, do their part of the job. One of the things that we had suggested was, think of performance-based regulations rather than simple pass-through. And Gujarat again was, one of the prompts for that, because the GERC in one of the draft MYT regulations has built in a performance-linked sort of ARR element in the draft MYT. It's not been enacted so far, but they've said that for a certain percentage of smart meters installed, you can get 0.5% more of ARR with DISCOM, and maybe that's one of the prompts that the DISCOM can then get to. If you mobilize some level of DR or some energy efficiency target, we get a little bit more ARR that builds into the business model itself. But I want to pick on something that you said on, the DISCOM and the regulator back and forth. And trust me, that's where I want to come to you. That as at MPN Systems, we've been working with DISCOMs to help them figure out what the business case or what the operational case for some of these use cases is. So what's been your experience in working with DISCOMs in this front, and how do you think, across different consumer segments, where should the DISCOM look? What's the best area for a DISCOM to start implementing some of these?
Thank you, Joe. I think Pramod has already set a very broad and deep context taking on what Shweta has said. So I just share a few examples of what we have done to demonstrate to DISCOMs what is possible. So to me it looks like a chicken and egg story. Who comes first, right? So at MPN Systems, what we've been trying to do is to demonstrate to DISCOMs sort of walking the talk. So the DSM narrative has itself taken a shift towards energy conservation narrative. So to take it beyond energy conservation, making DISCOMs more profitable is what DSM's broader mandate is. And we are trying to get to that through various pilot programs we have sort of built based on known theories and accepted knowledge among all the well-researched reports and others, whatever they have recommended. So at Thane Municipal Corporation in Maharashtra, which is under Tata Power's distribution area, we have tested shifting the load of public water utilities. So is that a flexible load is first thing to understand, and to have a conversation with a forward-looking DISCOM like Tata Power is easier. But then going to the public water utility, having the conversation, walking through the talk, and doing your data based on this SCADA results, and then designing a program and helping them implement it and monitoring it, and then showing the results on your SCADA meters, reports, is what we have done. And to this end, at Bandup, this is at Bandup only, right? Bandup. What we have done is this is for 3 large pumping systems. We have shifted so the idea was to shift non-solar peak hour load to solar non-peak hours, which was what Shweta's presentation showed, and which is what most of the demand flexibility conversation is. It's as simple as that, demonstrating it to them how it can be shifted. And if what we did is for 23 days, and if we project it across Tata Power's 50 pumping stations, we're looking at 50 megawatt savings per month. And so this is what we've demonstrated. Now Tata Power is interested, now it's in their code, how they would take this conversation to their regulators and design it. What we're getting to is what everybody has said here already in multiple ways, or probably in similar lines, that how does a DISCOM understand their data? Now, a private utility is able to, and we also saw this in another conversation with BSCS, that is, BYPL, the Yamuna Power in Delhi, and their counterparts. They are also interested in a similar demand flexibility program, and we are in conversation with them as well. But the thing is, how do we take this conversation from a private utility to a public utility? The data that's available on with what the terabytes of data that's getting aggregated at the utilities, it appears that there's a market opportunity for players, which is what Schneider did, but in a way that is viable, cost viable, knowledge viable, that takes this data which is being generated and shows them the big pie. What does the big pie look like? What is energy cost or the DSM opportunity? And shows them the pie in various forms. Can it be automated? That data can be crunched so that every DSM cell in a DISCOM would say about they do not have enough capacity within the organization. So what will build the cat? Who will fit in there? Is that a market opportunity unmet? We're talking about demand response programs, where various, I'm sure Suruchi also will be talking about it, and there are various players there, very interesting, very absolutely innovative solutions. But what happens to a DISCOM's level? Who will help the DISCOM crunch the number? And that is like volumes and volumes of data. And that's one thing I'd like to, we do pilots. And another quick example is we are working with, our target is 100, we are about 50 cold chain storage systems at farm gate. Now these cold chains, there are 8,000 or 9,000 cold chain storage systems in India at farm gate, that is near the harvest, near where farmers harvest their fresh produce. Their energy use is increasingly high, because right now it's around 400 metric ton or 450 metric ton. What we are trying to do is we have installed smart meters, and we are trying to look at the compressor usage often, and energy intensity, energy efficiency, all these aspects using smart meter data. There's a lot of resistance, but it's becoming competitive space because of what everybody has said here, because of changes in climate. It's becoming quite warm, unpredictable rain. So you need a storage system which is quickly accessible and where they can store. That means it's energy use. energy use translates into these cold storage person who installs it or runs it is not necessarily the person, he's not necessarily using it always, he's selling the capacity to other farmers also, right? So the energy cost is sort of transferred to them. That is bigger part of your big profit margins. So the awareness of energy and how it affects all the stakeholders at all levels is there. How can DISCOMs look at this temperature? It can, if you use a demand flexibility model, can DISCOMs look at these sort of systems, which we spoke about household energy use, even in these at an agrarian level also, can we observe the energy use and modulate the temperature based on load ramping and load ramping up and ramping down. So these are some of the ways we are seeing, we are implementing air testing, and our objective is to demonstrate with several case studies and push it to a scale of decent size so that the DISCOMs understand what does the data mean. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Several points in there, on data crunching and how does the DISCOM do it. So I know this has come up multiple times, and Suchi, I will come to you. I can see that you've got your phone open. But what I asked Saket will also give more context to the question that I'll ask you. So Saket, it matters to the DISCOM to have scale, because that's when they see an impact on their operations as well, when they're looking at either energy efficiency or demand response. So natural tendency then is to look at concentrated loads and big consumers, municipalities, CNI, or even larger domestic consumers. But you've been looking at a very unlikely segment in this space, which is the affordable housing segment. So what are you finding that is there potential of demand response there? And if there is, then how do we also incentivize these consumers, given that the price of electricity there is also subsidized, so they might not see as much of an economic gain directly?
So I'll answer that question in three parts, right? About the size, about the potential, and incentives. So about size, it's definitely not either or. Going ahead, I think DISCOM has to attack all consumer segments. Right? But I will share some anecdotal evidence, maybe that helps us to shed the myth of people living in affordable housing not being able to contribute to this. Let's talk about the most celebrated program, the Ujala lighting program. Right? What it did, large number of very small programs, okay? And it was a game changer. If we are looking at efficient fans program, right? Imagine now that all the PMAY housing comes fitted with efficient fans, because everybody installs. Right? So now what you have is large number of captive users with a possibly top-down implementation, so that you don't have to go and recruit people, right? Which starts giving delivered saving and delivered flexibility from day one, right? So that is how I am looking at affordable housing segment, with a top-down mandate coming from, say, a PMAY like code, which would mandate such thing that all new PMAY housing comes pre-fit with the requisite infrastructure, hardware, so that deployment does not need additional investment, which may be expensive because of scale, which may not need additional recruitment, right? So this is how I am looking at the scale and at the segment. Right? Of course, this has to be done along with bottom-up approach of awareness and training and capacity building. So this is about how I'm looking at size. About potential, now again we are looking at a segment for whom even a 50 rupees saving on their 300 rupees monthly bill matters. So it is a segment who would want to participate, compared to a segment which is paying 5,000 rupees a month on electricity bill, and you're saving them 200 rupees a month, right? And what evidence shows from pilots in Delhi, the savings is not the game changer. There, the altruism and the dopamine and the gamification and appeal to vanity is what the programs are being sold on, right? But these things have life, that once the pump effect has gone, will it be sustainable for years? Right now we have many cheerleaders who are pushing this program. But we feel that, as long as it makes monetary benefit, the savings cannot be sustained. So for a segment which is paying 300 rupees a month, and if you save them 50 rupees a month, this is a very sustained effort which can go on an autopilot. These are the people who will not invest first time on a 5-star or a 4-star appliance. They would first buy a 1-star or a 2-star appliance, right? So given their tendencies to buy inefficient appliance, clearly you would have a far more potential of saving if you intervene. Okay? So there are many reasons, and I can go on, I'll not push this, but we feel that maybe you see them as customers now, but in 3 to 5 years, with the economic mobility, with their aspiration, with the kind of appliance they would have, they aspire to have, and with electric two-wheelers, right? You are looking at a very big potential for demand flexibility. Just electric two-wheelers with say 40% ownership would be a game changer for this segment. Coming to the last point, that incentives, you are saying incentives would be very small because anyways they're paying less. I would like to kind of expand this discussion of incentive, right? First, let's look at benefits. And benefits is what? It's potential into scale into adoption rate. So potential per household may be small, but the scale is, the numbers are huge. Adoption rate due to a top-down approach may be huge, right? So the net benefit would be much more than per household MIG or HIG segment that would contribute, right? Given that the net benefit to the DISCOM is more, we can rethink the incentive in terms of the direct saving to looking at the system-wide saving that Shweta shared and Nandan shared, and see what can be a benefit sharing mechanism that goes beyond direct saving that we are so narrowly focused on, right? So with these three things, I think, at least to us, it seems that this segment is a very right segment for adoption for scale.
Thanks, very insightful points. I think the PMAY has come multiple times, and we've also in the past toyed with this idea of there's already such a big affordable housing stock coming up. So I think that's probably one question that can be dealt in the next session. But completely agree with you that when we say if you think about the incentive in a per kilowatt hour point of view, it might not seem that big. But when we look at the capacity and the longer term gains, when we look at a kilowatt value, that's when the incentive also becomes bigger.
One more point I would just want to add. Here you are selling them at a subsidized rate, right? And if you can free up that energy to be sold to your C&I customers, that's an extra layer of saving that you build in without additional investment in your infrastructure, right? So I think the key lies in accounting and where you draw the system boundaries, what benefits are calculated, what are not calculated, and that would be a game changer.
Okay, so Surji, to you now. So on data and on smart meters, and I want to add another layer, a couple of layers to it. So the thrust of the program so far has been loss reduction, but in DISCOMs where the losses aren't very high, and Gujarat is one such case, but across states there are multiple DISCOMs who feel that their AT&C losses are not high enough for them to actually recover the cost of smart meters. So then how do DISCOMs extract the value of smart meters, and does it build enough of a case for them? And two, within the DISCOM, what kind of changes do you feel as someone who's providing services to DISCOMs? Are there services that are better off outsourced? And what level of reorganization is required within the DISCOM? What level of upskilling for them to be able to do certain baseline jobs themselves? And is that going to be more sustainable for them?
Yeah, thanks, Dhruv. Very valid questions. So I actually would like to highlight a few points which are absolutely basic. I feel that the approach has to be very, very simple. The problem statement has to be very, very simple for everybody to understand, and then only the real benefits can come. And I really concur with the idea that Shivare sir today in the morning presented, that it has to be a mass movement, first of all. And secondly, the takeaway from for me in that presentation, Jyotigram, I think, Yojana, was that, can I say things in Hindi also? That जो है हमारे पास सबसे पहले we have to optimize that. with unnecessarily going for new things, every time adopting new, bringing new challenges for people is not a good idea. So I feel that we have to make it a mass movement, starting from customer, because customer is the one who is at the base of this whole thing, and until and unless he is aware why things are being done, and if you're not giving him a chance to participate, then the program success can not be achieved. So like Saket was pointing out, that for some 50 rupees saving is a very big thing. For some, participating and being a part of good initiatives in society is gamification and dopamine, all those things are more important. So you have to understand your customer very well. And when we understand the customer very well, we can segmentize and accordingly design things. And that can only be done when at DISCOM level, people have tools to be able to, understand their customer. So when you are adopting smart meters already, like somebody pointed out in the crowd, so let us make best use of that smart meter and smart meter data. Now that you are investing, kitna paisa us pe lag chuka hai, or you are getting huge amount of data. What is the benefit that is going to the customer beyond your billing and collection? And what is the benefit that DISCOM official is able to draw out of it? So can we give them small simple tools to play around with data? Of course, capacity building plays a very big role. मेरे को लगता है बहुत बड़ा gap है in how we understand data, how we are able to make use of it, and whatever we hear in lecture rooms that this can be done or that can be done, practically be able to play with the data. That scope has to be given to a DISCOM official. Now, for that you need budget and tools to buy those tools. That, like Pramod pointed out, there have to be third parties who can evaluate the effectiveness and which tools to be bought, and let us not burden the DISCOM person with the procurement also and with playing with technology and making use of it. So I say that each one of us has to play a role. You people as non-profit organizations have to think about, you are all the time thinking about bigger picture. Bigger picture is there with you, but that bigger picture is sustaining my existence or not. When I say me, it is not me. Consumer की अपनी existence, like किसी के लिए वो पैसे बहुत important है, तो 5-star वाला AC आएगा बहुत महंगा. It may not be practical for me. It may be saving environment. I don't care. So I will buy something which is suitable to my pocket. So we have multiple issues and we have to take care of this fact. Are we helping the existence of the consumer, of DISCOM officials, of policy makers, of regulators, of non-profits, of industry, of everyone? And then bringing out the best mix, and each one plays our own role, and I feel we need to let them play with those tools, understand that bigger problem themselves. If you मतलब कोई भी problem अगर आप ऊपर से नीचे भेजते हैं, without conviction nobody does anything. If they themselves are convinced that the trend is very different from what we thought it is through those tools, then I'm sure they'll be convinced to make everything possible to implement the program and make it successful. So these are my points on this.
Thanks. I just want to follow up. So I mean, as a company that's helping DISCOMs, I mean, can you talk a little bit about, in some of the specific DISCOMs that you've been working with, how has this sort of played out? What has been your experience in working with DISCOM teams in helping them crunch the data, sort of helping them with the tools, and then, eventually build, handing over that capacity to them, for them to be able to do it?
So, for example, of course, we are not just into loss reduction. We are doing a lot of things in across the globe. But in India, yes, we are working a lot on loss reduction. This simple smart meter data, we work with Bihar. And they thought they know a lot about data. But I was surprised to see that they had very limited knowledge about data. बहुत सारा basic data points that they thought their MDM is capturing is not being captured. and they are missing out on a very big piece of information. So we have helped them कि कौन सा data आप capture नहीं कर रहे हैं, which is available in the smart meter already. It is only a matter of telling the MDM person to store it. And secondly, how that data they can use, and at a click of a button so much can be done, and they experience that. मतलब उन्होंने देखा कि यहाँ बैठे बैठे their management was able to see कौन से consumers हैं who are contributing to this loss, and for that you don't need consumer indexing. Consumer indexing majorly people are wanting to do because they want to finally identify कि कौन से loss making pockets हैं. But if you are crunching the data of each and every consumer, which is a facility available in your smart meter, and there are technologies to crunch that data, तो आपको कोई जरूरत नहीं है consumer indexing की. Without that, you can identify what is happening, why it is happening, and for example, our company is able to see, like somebody over here had pointed out. Of course, I'm not talking about device-based demand response, but so somewhere you will need device-based demand response, but somewhere you can do behavioral demand response. If we are able to crunch the data and see up to appliance level who is using what appliances at residential level. So once we know that information, then there is a lot that can be done. For the consumer, he can figure out what savings he can. For example, I mean, a very basic example, in my house, suppose we are 3 people and we are in 3 different rooms. 3 लोग 3 अलग-अलग कमरों में बैठे हैं, तीनों ने AC चलाया है. I have no clue कि इसका मेरे बिल पे क्या impact पड़ता है. Because end of the month, whoever is paying, my husband is paying or whoever is paying, I don't care. But the point is, if I'm aware that how these ACs are denting my bill, then I will become conscious. And then I will at least try that we 3 sit in 1 room or 2 rooms at least. 1 AC is off. So very small, very basic things, but we need tools, we need education. And I think if you have appliance level information, utilities can identify a lot of gaps and drive demand shifting, load shaving. Lot of it can be done. Only you need empowerment through data. And that is there already in your smart meters. But I really love the point of third-party evaluators, and I think that is where the DISCOM people are stuck in procurements. And we are also facing this challenge that procurement is not possible. Pilots sab log kar lete hain, no procurement is happening. Because there is somebody who should take the ownership of certifying that yes, the job is done and now you can go ahead. So I think those are the
fabulous insights, Bijli, Surji from your work at Bijli, and no, I mean, we've been tracking these use cases, and we know that you're operating in multiple geographies. So very interesting to see how DISCOMs sort of come up with these use cases and sort of leverage your services.
Yeah, sorry, I would like to add a point. In one of our European utility, their problem was that AC degradation. They wanted to basically identify ACs which are degrading at residential level, and and then they wanted to promote the selling of efficient ACs. So this is where we, as a company, could help. We, without any hardware device, we could identify exact set of people who have ACs, and within that exact set of people who have inefficient appliances, either degrading or saturating ACs, and we recruited them for the DSM program or demand response program. And that is how they could achieve, selling of those efficient appliances. Effectiveness of the
targeting is so important, right?
Yeah.
Because when you have a blanket program for the entire consumer segment, you don't know who ends up benefiting and who's the sort of actual beneficiary from that. Thank you, Surji. I do have another list of questions, but I want to see, in the interest of time, if there's questions from the room. If we can open it right away, otherwise I will fall back on the list that I have. Sure.
Okay, my question is very basic. What is the cost per family of implementing behavioral demand?
See, Ashish, I will not be able to comment upon the cost, but I think the base is that you have to adopt the technology, and I know the cost for adopting that technology. And then there are inbuilt benefits of running these kind of programs. There's no additional cost once you have that tool in place.
Just add to that, the cost would depend on the number of customers you are enrolling. So for 100 customers, the cost does not increase proportionately. So from going from 100 to 1000 to 1 lakh, you would be seeing a very marginal increase in
might reduce, right? I mean, will scale. So
overall cost would increase marginally, and the per customer cost
average cost will start to go down.
So I think Nandan had some.
Yeah, exactly. His number sort of showed that as you scale from 25 to 75 to 100,000.
But that is for
That is
sensor
the
based.
ADR, largely. That is the ADR.
But I'm talking about data, but once you have the tool, you put tools and you can do multiple things. And BDR is one.
Pramod, did you want to say something?
It costs 0 rupees. You have to send SMS over WhatsApp and see who are going to respond. But if you want to have reduction with certain certainty, and then only investing in some tools will be required.
Software is typically scalable, I would think, and and it's an OPEX cost, so it's also not a very heavy CapEx. So that's also one of the regulatory changes that's probably required. With the smart meters in some states, the regulator said that this is not, the regulations don't allow me to pass meter cost as a OPEX. It is supposed to be a CapEx. But some of the solutions to deploy this might come in an OPEX model, and we need to start thinking about that. There's one more question somewhere.
So myself from PGVCL from DISCOM, हमने एक AGDSM प्रोग्राम किया है, I think 2016 to 2022 तक. उसमें क्या था कि फर्स्ट ऑफ हमने जो न्यू एग्रीकल्चर कनेक्शन जो हमारे रिलीज होते हैं उनको BE 5 स्टार रेटेड पंप से रिलीज करेंगे, और उसमें से जो भी मतलब DSM प्रोग्राम किया था रेगुलेटरी से अप्रूव भी किया था, और अप्रोक्सीमेटली हमने मोर देन 7000 पंप उसमें रिलीज किए हुए हैं. तो फर्स्ट ऑफ क्या था कि जब भी प्रोग्राम ने डिवाइस किया और अप्रूवल लिया, तब वो प्रोग्राम मैग्नेट था कि जो भी नया एग्रीकल्चर कनेक्शन रिलीज होगा वो मैग्नेटरी BE 5 स्टार पंप से ही होगा. पर उसके बाद क्या हुआ कि बहुत सारे उसमें से जो फार्म, और उसमें हमने अपफ्रंट अमाउंट भी रखा था कि जो भी मतलब उसको बर्डन आता है कंज्यूमर पे एज ए नॉन कन्वेंशनल पंप टू कन्वेंशनल पंप, उसको हम अपफ्रंट पेमेंट रिलीज भी करते थे. पर उसमें बहुत सारे फार्मर के इतने रिप्रेजेंटेशन आए और किसान संघ और वगैरह वगैरह से कि फार्मर के पास ऑलरेडी पंप है और उन्होंने मतलब वो लिया हुआ है, तो हम नया पंप का भी बर्डन क्यों लें. इसके हिसाब से हमारा जो प्रोग्राम था फर्स्ट ईयर में हमने अप्रोक्सीमेटली 4000 किए थे, फिर रिड्यूस होके लास्ट ईयर में 100 जितना हो गया. तो उसमें हम मतलब क्या कर सकते हैं उसको मतलब इतना सब अवेयर है, सब भी है, पर उसमें मतलब फिर भी वो कोई लेना नहीं चाहता.
That's a very valid question कि जो अप्लायंस चल रही है उसकी यूजफुल लाइफ अगर खत्म नहीं हुई तो उसको क्यों रिप्लेस करना है अभी, और उसका उतना बेनिफिट है कि नहीं एनर्जी एफिशिएंट अप्लायंस लगाने का. सुरुचि.
तो एग्जैक्टली मैम जो आपने अभी पॉइंट रेज किया है, सो दिस इज वेयर टेक्नोलॉजी हेल्प्स. सबसे पहले तो आपको अगर सपोज यू हैव द राइट टेक्नोलॉजी विद यू विल नो कि ये जो प्रोग्राम आपने डिजाइन किया है इसके कितने टेकर्स हैं. अनलेस आपको ये आइडिया मतलब द सक्सेस ऑफ द प्रोग्राम इज डिपेंडेंट ऑन टेकर्स. अगर आपको शुरू में ही पता चल जाए कि इतने लोगों के पास ऑलरेडी पूल पंप है, वो क्यों चेंज करेंगे.
नहीं मैडम, इट इज फॉर न्यू रिलीज कनेक्शन. सपोज दिस ईयर हमने मतलब अप्रोक्सीमेटली 10,000 पंप रिलीज करते हैं, तो सब में हमने मैग्नेट किया था कि वो मतलब न्यू BE 5 स्टार से ही रिलीज करेंगे. पर फार्मर को क्या है कि वो भी मतलब कॉस्ट डिफरेंशियल अमाउंट भी देते हैं, फिर भी उनको वो नहीं लेना है. उनका माइंडसेट वही है कि हम वो भी क्यों ले, क्योंकि हमारे पास ऑलरेडी बहुत पुराना पंप है, रिवाइंडिंग वाला है, हम वही यूज करेंगे, हमें वो भी बर्डन नहीं चाहिए.
मतलब मुझे तो यही लगता है अनलेस यू अंडरस्टैंड योर कस्टमर, उसके बिना आप कोई भी प्रोग्राम डिजाइन अगर हमें लाइक इन द मॉर्निंग ऑल्सो ये पॉइंट आउट हुआ था, टेक्नोलॉजी एंड बिहेवियर दोनों की स्टडी रखनी पड़ेगी, तभी कोई भी चीज सक्सेसफुल हो सकती है.
बट बिहेवियर में बहुत सारे चेंजेस करने पड़ेंगे, तो उसमें
नहीं बिहेवियर को चेंज क्यों करना है, बिहेवियर को जानना है.
पॉलिसी को ये करना है.
मुझे ऐसा लगता है बिहेवियर को चेंज हर बार क्यों करना है, जानना जरूरी है पहले तो, और फिर कितना वो चेंज हो सकता है वो भी जानना जरूरी है।
बेसिकली क्या है कि एग्रीकल्चर टैरिफ बहुत ही लोएस्ट रेट में होता है हमारा, तो मतलब वो कंज्यूमर को वो सेविंग उनको तो कुछ करती नहीं। सपोज जैसे कि एज ए फ्री पावर है तो उनको इतना वो मतलब नहीं लेना है बर्डन कि हम क्यों अपना बिहेवियर चेंज करें। ऐसे हमें कोई फ्री दे तो हम यूज करते हैं, बट this is big challenges for us. Otherwise, we have great success in this program.
Controversial answer. मत लीजिए फ्री का बिजली, मत लीजिए कनेक्शन, मत लीजिए, कहीं ना कहीं तो कुछ तो बाउंड्री बनाना पड़ेगा।
That's why I leave this program.
मतलब I don't think state आपको छोड़ना चाहिए था। दूसरे states, you look at पंजाब, पंजाब में 15 लाख पंप्स हैं, हरियाणा 12 लाख पंप्स हैं, महाराष्ट्र 1 करोड़ पंप्स हैं। तो उन लोग न्यू कनेक्शंस में ये चीज बोल रहे हैं। It's not only about efficiency. पुराना पंप जो है उससे आपका सिस्टम में पावर क्वालिटी पे फर्क पड़ रहा होगा, जो और तरह का डैमेज हो रहा होगा। अगर कोई प्रोग्राम आ रहा है और गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से इसमें बेनिफिट मिल रहा है, गेटिंग फ्री कनेक्शन, गेटिंग सब्सिडाइज्ड इलेक्ट्रिसिटी, गेटिंग न्यू पंप एट सब्सिडाइज्ड प्राइस, अब उस पे भी अगर किसी को ऑब्जेक्शन है तो बोलिए फिर आप अपना सोलर लगा के इंडिपेंडेंट हो जाए।
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
I mean, as I said, controversial, but this is what I think.
तो सर ने भी हॉस्टल में बिजली तब बचानी शुरू की थी जब स्टूडेंट्स को पे करना शुरू करना पड़ा था। तो जब हॉस्टल में बिजली का बिल का स्टूडेंट्स को पे करना शुरू पड़ा तब
That is also true. But ma'am, जो on AGDSM, sorry, slightly digressing, ये मेरा थोड़ा एक pet topic है। And in the morning also I was saying, supply electricity जिस direction में जाता है, savings उसका opposite direction में जाना चाहिए। So I think for a proper AGDSM program or for a proper solarizing pump program, आपको वहाँ से start करना चाहिए। How much water is required? वहाँ पर can the volume of water requirement be reduced or not? वहाँ से start कीजिए। आप water को save कर रहे हैं तो फिर आप इलेक्ट्रिसिटी रिक्वायरमेंट को सेव कर रहे हैं, फिर आप उसको एफिशिएंटली मीट कर रहे हैं, फिर आप उसको सोलर से कर रहे हैं। अगर आप ये सब नहीं कर रहे हैं, यू आर पुटिंग अ बिग फैट सोलर फॉर समथिंग दैट इज गोइंग इनटू वेस्ट।
सर इसमें ऐड करना चाहता हूँ कि हमारी एक तत्काल योजना आई थी एग्रीकल्चर में, तो उसमें हमने ड्रिप इरिगेशन सिस्टम भी गुजरात गवर्नमेंट में उसमें भी सब्सिडी दी थी। फिर भी क्या करते थे फार्मर्स, वो ले लेते थे, फिर 1-2 महीने में उसको रीसेल कर देते थे। इनसे मेंटालिटी है सर। और इसमें भी हमारी वही सोच थी AGDSM में, ESL से भी ज़्यादा हमने ऑल ओवर इंडिया में एक PGVCL डिस्कॉम में जिसने AGDSM प्रोग्राम लॉन्च किया और अच्छा सक्सेस भी मिला था हमको। बट क्या है, फार्मर ऑलरेडी है वो लॉट्स ऑफ ओल्ड पंप्स, और हमने न्यू कनेक्शन पे लगा हुआ था ये स्कीम्स। सो वोट बैंक भी है और बहुत सारे कॉम्प्लिकेशन है एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर। और हमने MND रखा था कि 2% MND दिया था कि 1000 पंप लगे हुए, तो हमने 2 पंप निकाल के वो चेक किया कि गलत तो नहीं लगा दिया ना, हमने पूरा सिस्टम क्लोज किया था।
Saket, you want to say something, and then Rashmi, if you want to add something.
I just want to say that pump is used somewhere.
The only point I'm trying to say is that even if the pump is sold, it will get installed somewhere. This is the same problem with the CFL program and the LED program. So people kept saying, "Oh, it's getting sold somewhere." But the thing is, it'll come back into it is used in the system. Nobody is going to keep it at home, right? After paying that money. So the granularity of how much you want to do is the question.
I agree, but let me give you a counterpoint, right? Especially in LED, is a big rebound effect. So you would have more bulbs in the system in places where you would not have put in the first place, right? So मेरे पीछे आंगन में बल्ब नहीं है क्योंकि 100 वाट का था, अब LED 10 वाट का है, 9 वाट का है, तो मैं वहाँ लगा के रात में चला भी है, तो मैं चिंता नहीं करूँ, right? So I think in any appliance replacement program, any appliance upgradation program, technology is only part of the solution, right? कि efficient technology हो गया, but then monitoring through another technology कि whether it's being used where it was supposed to use, whether it's being used the way it is supposed to be used, and is used by the right beneficiary, right? Plus the financial mechanism around it, right? कि आप सारा benefit day one पे pass on कर दी, or you are staggering the benefit over 1 year period, and you have to continuously say that you're using it over 1 year period, right? So I think easiest for us is to say technology upgrade or appliance upgrade, but I think the program design, which is the non-technical part, is where the success really lies.
Well, thank you, Saket, for that round of applause. I think it's a good place to close it. Good timing wise, we're sort of at the right point. So thank you so much for your insights, and I hope this has been a useful session for everyone. Thank you.
Coming up, we have an insightful panel